Yeah, should we talk about the
rape gangs? Yeah.
The grooming gangs in the UK?
Yeah.
Which is in the news because Elon was tweeting about it.
Yeah, like a week or two ago, Pakistanis were breathing a sigh of relief because all eyes were like on Indians over the H-1B visa stuff. And now they're like sweating because they're at the center of the discourse with the grooming gang stuff. I mean, the thing with Pakistanis is that they're both Indian and Muslim. So that's like double the rape culture.
It seems really bad. Yeah, hard to say what the bigger issue is.
Immigration, legal immigration.
I mean, their religious beliefs or their ethnicity.
Oh yeah. I think like the religious
their
beliefs
religion
are a proxy for the cultural makeup, I guess. In the Sharia, it says you need 4 witnesses
to have sex.
You need at least 4 people at the gang rape.
Oh my god.
No, it says like you need 4 witnesses. Monica was tweeting about this to testify when you make a rape accusation.
Really?
So the rape gangs are also being really charitable and generous because they're baking the witnesses into the process. But yeah, this is all Elon's fault because he started tweeting about this decade-old case out of Rotterdam.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe he was trying to like pivot and distract from the fact that he was like going too easy on the Pajeets.
I don't know. What do you think his motivations were for? Because there was an expose in 2011.
Yeah.
In the London Times about these grooming gangs.
Yeah.
And then there was an investigation. And then people kind of stopped talking about it. And then a couple years ago, they did another investigation where they were like, oh, it's still a problem. Yeah. But then that hasn't really been
yielded any results.
Addressed at all.
Well, and then the latest development is that there's been a lot of outrage today because I'm going to pull up this Charlie Kirk tweet. I hope he's not tweeting a lot. It's really hard to, like, these influencers tweet so much.
Well, Labour voted, which is the party in power.
Yeah.
They voted against.
Yeah.
There was an initiative to re-examine the situation with the grooming. And they voted against doing it because they covered it up in the past because it's Islamophobic, racist, whatever, to point out that the Pakis are raping
have a problem,
the working class English girls.
Yeah. So the vote was 364 to 111 against opening a new inquiry. I get why people are mad and chimping. I mean, I think the tendency now is to see everything as a sign of like left lib incompetence and or malice. But I just want to play devil's advocate here and say, like, in terms of opening a new inquiry, like, who's going to lead it? What will it yield? What is the purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I read
what would it accomplish, essentially?
Well, I read an article in the Financial Times, which was attempting to make the case that this has already been addressed, that there was an authoritative study that yielded a report where some professor who conducted this, you know, it's all this like jargon. He came up with 20, let me see. Professor Alexis J. said that we've had enough of inquiries, consultants, and discussions. He was the author of the report. We have set out what action is required, and people should just get on with it. And basically, yeah, he came up with 20 sort of like, but like things that are unrelated. They passed like an online safety thing that made it harder for like underage, but barely, you know, it's like they did all this like stupid crap and then mostly nothing.
Yeah, what's to say a new inquiry, in other words, won't result in more time and money wasted on sick and twisted bureaucratic games? Like, the old inquiry, from my understanding, basically revealed that yes, there was a rape epidemic going on in England, but it swept the cultural component under the rug. And if this new one were to say, like, actually, this is like a quote Asian problem, what would happen next? You can't exactly start sending them back because, as it turns out, all these guys are legal immigrants.
Yeah. And some were even born in...
Yeah. Or, yeah, they're like native...
They're fully
like,
naturalized
citizens. Yeah.
It's too late. Well, yeah, so... The issue is with downplaying the racial component that then forced the Labour Party to effectively, it's not just the raping, it's the cover up of the raping. Yeah. And then not believing the like slags. That there was like a kind of... I just
like shagging.
Lily Phillips. Yeah. Horrible. I mean, really bad, but to counter your devil's advocacy, another investigation could potentially just create, I don't know, make it easier, I guess, for a girl to get out of a situation where she's been groomed.
But that would only happen if we acknowledge that this is a racial and cultural problem.
But haven't they basically
racially and culturally profile these people? And, you know, Louise Perry made a really great point that, you know, if you didn't know any better and there wasn't this mountain of evidence, you wouldn't be crazy in assuming that it was a malicious exaggeration or outright invention of the far right. Like, this sounds like a fake news story made up by right-wing ideologues. It sounds like a parody. The first thing that came to mind to me when I was reading these accounts and reports was how it sounds like a Curb episode. Like, if you remove the totally sad and tragic and toxic element out of it, it's like comedy gold. Like, you're walking home from school one day and a guy drags you into an alley and tries to rape you, and you get loose and run into a deli and those guys pretend to make a phone call, but they take you into the back room and start raping you. Mm-hmm. And then against all odds, you escape again, and you run into the street and you hail a taxi.
Or a taxi stops and asks if you need help.
If you need help, and instead of taking you to the hospital or the police station, he takes you to a remote location where he and 18 of his buddies who may or may not know each other and may or may not be related rape you yet again. And then you emerge from your horrible ordeal battered and bruised and finally make it to the ER, and the staff rapes you again for good measure. Like, that's how these stories sound. It's like the Curb theme plays.
I mean, it's like Hostel, the movie, you know, where they're trying to like, where every single person you meet is like conspiring against you to get you into a rape dungeon.
Yeah. And here's Louise again. The authorities did not want to know. The victims were called white whores or white slags. Not only did these crimes go uninvestigated, but victims and their families were frequently stonewalled or persecuted by the police, which again sounds like parody or propaganda, but it's not. If you were like a father who tried to protect or avenge your daughter by threatening her rapist, you could go to jail. If you left racist social media posts, you could get fined or also go to jail.
If you said, please can these Packies stop raping me, sir, you get in trouble.
And meanwhile, like, you know, thousands of preteen and teen girls are getting raped, molested, trafficked, prostituted, impregnated, and forced to have abortions. They're like beaten. They're threatened with retribution against themselves and their families.
But they're not. Okay, so the grooming.
Yeah.
They're not being like it's not an epidemic of like street abductions. It's like these guys hang out at the mall and prey on like
or on the corner,
girls, and like
I'm just going to read this article. Excerpts from the sentencing remarks relating to the 2013 conviction of members of an Oxford gang have been circulated on Twitter this week. They tell the stories of girls between the ages of 11 and 16 being anally raped, branded with their perpetrators' initials, forcibly injected with heroin, and trafficked across Britain to have sex with more men. The specific kind of crime that Rotherham represents is absolutely racialized and is not rare. Rotherham itself is a small town. By conservative estimate, 1,400 children, the vast majority of girls, were abused over a 15-year period, representing a substantial minority of white girls living in Rotherham at the time. A 2020 study by academics from Reading and Chichester universities estimated that 1 in 73 Muslim men in Rotherham were prosecuted for their involvement in the abuse, with an unknown additional number evading detection. Almost everyone in Rotherham knows someone involved, either as a victim or perpetrator. It should not surprise us that during last summer's race riots, the town was the site of some of the most serious violence. So I actually had a couple of questions regarding the grooming gangs. Like, first of all, why are they called grooming gangs, since the grooming seems secondary to the rape?
Well, the grooming is part and parcel.
It's the gateway to the rape, yeah. Secondly, like, when you say gang, what do you mean by that? I'm like, comp-bot. I'm like, define gang. But, like, my question was, like, are they formal, pre-existing, organized criminal organizations, or are they like loose social networks that are formed kind of opportunistically or even spontaneously for the purpose of committing rape?
I think
not that it changes anything, but
no, I think it does. I mean, not morally, but you know, and
in the prior case, it makes it much worse.
I do think there is some, or with the trafficking and stuff, it does seem that there is some like organized crime element that's more than just random.
Yeah, I brought these questions to a friend of mine who lives in England and has a podcast, Yerk, and he had some really good answers. And in his words, the grooming part, like, it sounds euphemistic, but it actually describes a core dynamic where they lured these girls with compliments and gifts and other forms of ingratiation. They posed as their boyfriends. They tried to befriend their friends and families. They took advantage of their rebellious streak, obviously.
Well, it's like black guys in America. Like the Packies are like American blacks. That's like how pimps, you know, lure women into lives of like prostitution is by like getting them addicted to drugs,
by being like, you're special
them,
girl,
you love them and stuff.
And then the gang part, I was surprised but not that surprised by the answer, because he said that in many cases these were established criminal syndicates that already engaged in like other illicit activities. So they were doing like drug dealing and welfare scamming and street level theft. And they were also often made up of family clans, like fathers, brothers, uncles, cousins. And he was pointing out that this is a feature that distinguishes them from like white pedophilia rings, which tend to be obviously made up of strangers who have sought each other out like on the internet.
Or elites.
Yeah, because, you know, their immediate social circles are unlikely to, you know, share their interests.
Right.
And like a friend of mine was saying that like, well, gang rape is like the gayest way to have heterosexual sex. But I was thinking more like, okay, if you're like gang raping with your dad and your uncle and your brothers and your cousins, isn't that like double the incest? Because you're already probably the product of incest due to cousin marriage. But then you're also committing incest in the course of perpetuating a rape.
Well, it's less of a taboo, certainly. Yeah, it's... I mean, in the way that it does feel almost like a fabricated, like, right-wing news item.
Yeah.
I think there is something like emotionally really powerful about it, because it's reflects the way that like people in England feel molested and raped by migrants in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like the H1B discourse and the grooming gang discourse seem like radically different things, but they're obviously the same thing in that they're attesting to like the limits of legal immigration. And here's another quote from Louise. Anyone with an ounce of sense should have realized that the post-sexual revolution culture of Britain and the very conservative sexual culture of a Muslim country like Pakistan would not mix happily. And like the point is that even if this story is now being like dangled for opportunistic reasons and is already years old, it's like pretty evergreen because this is clearly still happening in the UK. It's happening in Denmark. It's happening in Holland. Like, it's happening across the board where there is unlimited immigration from non-Western, primarily Muslim societies. Not to make it about me, but it was happening in New Jersey when I was growing up, and it happened to me personally. And it didn't happen, you know, it wasn't as extreme as like, you know, they weren't like burning you and your family alive in your house like happened to Lucy Lowe, who was one of the victims, or you know, cutting you up into kebab meat.
Oh my God, the girl,
which happened to Charlene Downs, another one of the victims. Say their names. And again, I think it was less extreme because in the United States, unlike in the UK, these communities were more assimilated.
Well, in the UK, you know, Pakistani people came to the UK because Pakistan was part of the Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in Trinidad, was thinking colonialism so great. You know?
Yeah.
I was like, why would anyone ever want to
yeah.
Because I went on a boat tour to some more remote islands.
Yeah.
And the captain was telling me, there was all this like eroded kind of, he said like the colonists would, you know, yes, they extracted resources, but they also like built things, and now just like kind of like globalist rich people inhabit these islands and don't really contribute anything to them.
They not only built things, but as Jordan Peterson pointed out, they established a decent government and a common law. They not only gave them a physical infrastructure, but a legal infrastructure and a political infrastructure.
Yeah. But in a, you know, cruel, ironic twist, those people then came to the West.
Yeah.
And started grooming gangs in England. And then England was too cucked to address the problem.
And to do anything about it
because they didn't want to be racist or Islamophobic.
Yeah, again, insult to injury. It's like not only were these mass rapes happening, but there was a massive cover-up by local politicians, law enforcement, social workers for racial sensitivity reasons because they didn't want to be seen as being racist or promoting negative racial stereotypes or whatever. And like, of course, like all sexual predators, and this is not in any way unique to like Muslim or Pakistani culture, these guys were very knowingly targeting like vulnerable girls from like poor backgrounds and broken homes,
like foster systems.
But there is very obviously like a racial cultural component. The thing with this particular culture is that it's very patriarchal, but the patriarchy is weak, and like they don't respect women, especially white women. And, you know, they see white women as like easy and disposable, whores, slags, whatever. And obviously, like, they also see them as foreigners.
The white.
Yeah, like they see them as foreign to their culture, which in their minds is the superior and correct culture. And they don't give these people any special treatment as we do in the West. And like, of course, also, if we're being honest, their lack of respect for white women has to do with the fact that they obviously like desire and covet them, but feel rejected by them. Like, it's a cope for feeling inferior and insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, of course, because these girls were white working class girls, no one really cared about them.
Yeah.
They didn't come from money or a protected minority.
They were Hollywood actresses.
Yeah. And then on top of that, there's the issue that like progressive dogma views white people as uniquely privileged. So if you are a poor working class white, you clearly did something to deserve it.
Yeah, I read one of the girls who tried to escape her situation. They said it was a lifestyle choice. Have you seen the movie Havoc with Anne Hathaway and Bijou Phillips? It's from like 2000.
But that sounds awesome.
She plays like a white girl, like maybe in the Palisades, honestly. Rich white girl in LA who is like an aspiring chola. She wants to like downwardly assimilate and hang out with Mexican bad boys.
Yeah.
And Bijou Phillips ends up getting gang raped because they're like, we want to join your gang. They don't know what they're getting into. They're high school girls. And then they say, if you want to be in the gang, you got to roll these dice. Yeah. And the number that you roll is the amount of guys who you have to fuck.
Yeah, like, okay, I was that girl. I'm serious because I came from a dysfunctional home and I was rebelling against my parents and wanted to hang out with cool older boys with cars and drugs, and like that was that. And at the time it was totally my decision, my agency, but
it was a lifestyle.
Yeah, it was a lifestyle choice in my mind.
Yeah.
And like, I forgot what I was going to say.
You were groomed.
I was. And obviously, like all the Muslim pundit and influencers are like not happy with the situation. They're tweeting out this Guardian article citing an old study by the Home Office that apparently shows that white men are responsible for most child abuse gangs. And they like to cite the statistic that like 87% of child sex offenses are committed by white men. And it's like, okay, like what are we talking about here? Only in the UK or in the Anglophone world? In the Anglosphere at large? In all white majority countries? Like, where are these samples coming from? What's the time scale? How are we classifying white? Like,
what, you know, as with the like the Franklin cover up, the Epstein stuff, as with like elite pedophile rings, the heinous aspect is of course the rape, but it's made much worse by like the organization that facilitates it, and then the subsequent cover up for whatever, for political reasons. It's the same thing. It's not the same as like, probably your like Irish uncles like more likely to molest someone.
Well, yeah, I mean the thing is like well, obviously England is still a white majority
obviously
country.
It's full of nonsense.
So and poofs. So it stands to reason that like the majority of sex crimes against children will be committed by
is it still
white
a white
men.
majority? Didn't you see that Muhammad was the most common
I'm
name?
gonna pull up this crazy tweet that I saw that also sounded fake but is real. But like, like what proportion of white men are committing child sex crimes versus like relative to the proportion of Pakistani men? I have a feeling that like progressives would not be happy with the answer. People, have a very hard time understanding per capita, which is why it became such a meme. But it's like a basic SAT problem. It's like, okay, if there's 50 guys, if there's 50 white guys in the UK and 5 of them are child rapists, and then there's 10 Pakistani guys in the UK and 3 of them are child rapists, which population has the higher proportion of child rapists?
Right. Steve Saylor, who I've been worried about in the
Why?
with the fires.
Oh yeah, how's he doing?
Well, he just said the Runyon Canyon Dog Park in the Hollywood Hills, which is the dog park right under the Hollywood sign, is on fire.
Shit.
And the wind is pushing the brush fire south towards the apartment buildings of Franklin Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard. The evacuation zone, Mulholland Drive on the north, Laurel Canyon on the west, Hollywood Boulevard on the south. And Steve lives in the valley.
Damn.
And now he says he doesn't know if his house will be safe.
Well, we're sending power to Steve.
But if the Hollywood sign burned down,
I know, that would be so crazy.
We don't have the technology to
3D print a new Hollywood sign.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
It's so crazy. I can't believe this is actually happening.
That Hollywood's actually burning.
It seems so bad.
It's the day of the locust.
Yeah.
Oh man. That fucking sucks.
Well, if anyone wants to come and stay at mine.
She was saying a real 3-bedroom. And we only smoke cigs in 1.5 rooms.
Only one room is a fire hazard. This whole building is. Like playing myself.
What were we saying? What were we talking about before?
Oh yeah, I was just saying like that you see these like commentators like Mohammed Hijab and Bushra Shaikh bringing up these statistics, and you're like, are you a retarded or a liar or both? Like, which one is it? Yeah, a lot of Muslim commentators have been doing this thing where they will deny the fact that it's a Pakistani problem, or try to like relitigate the fact that it's being brought up now before denouncing the crime and sympathizing with the victims. And that seems insane and outrageous, but in a way they're more resolved and reconciled.
In their like clannish behavior.
Yeah, like than people in like the enlightened West, because they don't really respect or care about white people, and like why should they?
Right.
And like, yeah, like these people, they'll come to
But they
like,
should care about Muslims, you know?
Yeah, well, they're all mad at Andrew Tate now because he's like, as a new Muslim, he's like, this is giving a bad name to Muslims, you guys.
And a sex trafficker.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
But yeah, like, you know, these people will come to the US or the UK and act like they own the place and start accusing the locals of racism when like the burden of proof should be on them to demonstrate why they're welcome and positive additions to the like national population. But that's Anglo logic.
No good deed, like colonialism, goes unpunished.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, I saw Andrew Tate chiming in. Mm-hmm. But he's right. You know, why would you want, you know, if you want to make the case that this isn't an issue, then you should address it.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is like, yeah, you acknowledge it, you address it, you repent and atone, you take certain steps to make sure that it's not a problem in your civilization. But like, they don't see themselves as like coming to the West and contributing to it. They see themselves as conquering the West and promoting their own civilization.
Right.
Which is their prerogative.
I mean, that's really a problem with Islam, though. It's not, you know, the like Hindus have their own like horny, like pestering problem, but I don't know.
Well, it's a problem for the West, but it's not a problem for Islam.
Right. Well, yeah.
And like, I'm surprised that there weren't more boys in the mix.
Right. What was that thing called in Afghanistan?
Oh, bachabazi.
Yeah, bachabazi. You told me about that. There probably were.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had to guess.
There must have been, yeah. Like, in a way, you know, I see it more from the side of the foreigners who are like maybe cheating and lying, get over here, and then thieving and raping when they're here or whatever, than I do from like the side, the authorities who like not only sat back and did nothing, but let it happen and made excuses for it.
Yeah.
But like, why
Rather
are
than
you
the hypocrisy of the Labour Party who purports to care about the working class, but then makes these woke concessions to
It's
cover
crazy.
up heinous crimes. Law and Order SVU would never. In New York City, sexually based offenses are considered especially heinous. And the detectives who investigate these vicious felonies are members of an elite squad known as a Special Victims Unit. And if they had that kind of thing in the UK, maybe we could start to change things. Maybe if they voted on having another investigation, they could start a Special Victims Unit and they could have their own Mariska Hargitay. But I don't know. England seems, I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems
Sorry, I'm like freezing. Are you cold?
Yeah, I'm so cold. Yeah.